You know, when it comes to trading, your biggest enemy, it's not the market. Nope, it's your own mind. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the 10 cognitive biases that secretly, and I mean secretly, sabotage your success. Let's get right into it.
I mean, it's the central mystery of trading, isn't it? You can have what you think is a perfect strategy, the best data money can buy, and you still end up on the losing side. So the real question is, why? Why do really smart traders make such bad, costly decisions?
Well, it's because the real battle, it isn't against the charts or some breaking news headline. It's all happening inside your head. It's a fight against this invisible enemy, our own cognitive biases. These are just mental shortcuts that our brain uses, but in trading, they totally distort how we see reality.
Okay, so to win this internal battle, you gotta have a plan. Here's ours. First, we're gonna frame the conflict, the brain versus the market. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, exposing 4 types of mental traps: information traps, emotional traps, ego traps, and then some external and meta traps. And don't worry, we'll wrap it all up with a practical toolkit you can actually use to fight back.
So, Section 1, the brain versus the market. Think about it this way. Our brains are basically ancient hardware. They're wired for survival in the wild, not for navigating the chaos of financial markets. So all those mental shortcuts that help us, not get eaten by a lion, they become our invisible enemy in trading, messing with our judgment right when we need to be crystal clear.
All right, let's get into our first category of traps. We're talking about information traps. This is all about how our brains filter, interpret, and, let's be honest, completely misread the data the market is throwing at us.
Okay, kicking things off with bias number 1, anchoring bias. Here's how it works. Imagine the market opens with this huge, powerful push to the upside, boom. That first move becomes your anchor. Now, even if the market starts showing all the signs of weakness, of reversing, it doesn't matter. You're mentally stuck on that first impression. You're convinced it's a bull day, and you end up fighting what's actually happening right now.
Next up, bias number 2 is recency bias. And this is kind of the opposite problem. This is where we give way too much importance to what just happened. So let's say you have a pullback strategy that's been a winner for years, but then you hit 3 losses, just 3, in a row. Recency bias starts screaming in your ear. This is broken, abandoned ship. You end up overreacting to a tiny little data set and might just toss a perfectly good long-term edge right in the trash.
Oh man, this next one, bias number 3, this one is dangerous. It's confirmation bias. It's our natural instinct to go looking for information that proves we're right. So if you're bullish on something, suddenly every little green candle is a genius confirmation of your thesis, right? And every red candle? Oh, that's just noise. You end up building this little echo chamber around yourself, and it makes you completely blind to what the market is actually telling you.
So, how do you escape these information traps? It's a 2-step process. First, the lesson. If it feels like everything is confirming your big idea, that should be a huge red flag. Seriously, think again. Second, the practice. You have to become your own biggest critic. Actively go look for reasons against your trade. Ask the hard question. What would have to happen to prove me completely wrong here?
Okay, so misreading the data is one thing, but what happens when our feelings just completely take over the driver's seat? Well, that brings us right into our second category, the emotional traps.
Yeah, you refuse to accept that it might be a losing trade. This quote just nails our 4th bias: post-purchase rationalization. The second we buy into a trade, we desperately need to believe we made the right call. So what do? We start making up excuses, justifying the position, ignoring all the warning signs, all because we just can't stand the thought of admitting we might have been wrong.
And this leads perfectly into bias number 5, loss aversion. This is a big one. It's been proven that psychologically, the pain of losing $100 feels about twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining $100. And this causes classic trader self-sabotage, like moving your stop loss to break even way too soon. You're not being smart or strategic. You're just trying to avoid that yucky feeling of a loss, even if it means you kill a trade that was about to become a huge winner. So the solution here, it's a huge mental shift. First, you have to reframe what a loss even is. It's not a personal failure. It's not you being dumb. It is just the cost of doing business. It's like inventory for a shop. Second, you have to stop making decisions just to feel good. Your stop-loss moves should be based on market context and your plan, period, not because you're scared of taking a small planned loss.
All right, moving on to trap number 3, The ego traps. Oh yeah. These are the biases that are all tangled up with our sense of self, our need to be smart, and our deep-seated desire to feel like we're in control.
And this right here perfectly sums up attribution bias, our sixth trap. When a trade's a winner, oh yeah, I'm a trading genius, knew it all along. But when that same trade fails, my broker's trash, my computer froze, my chair is broken. We take all the credit for the wins and blame everything but ourselves for the losses. Sound familiar?
And that kind of thinking feeds right into bias number 7, the illusion of control. This is the totally false belief that we can actually control what the market does. Let's be super clear here. You can't. We can't. The only things you ever have control over are your own actions, your entry, your exit, your risk management, your discipline. That is the entire list. Full stop.
And then there's this classic phrase, yes, I knew it all along. This is hindsight bias, our 8th trap. You know what I'm talking about. You look back at a chart from yesterday, and everything is just painfully obvious. Of course it rallied there. The signal was crystal clear. We fool ourselves into thinking past events were super predictable. And that is so dangerous because it gives you this false confidence and stops you from actually learning from what you missed in real time.
Okay, on to our final category of traps, external and meta traps. I like to call this one the crowd and the mirror. One trap comes from the outside world, and the other one comes from, well, from our inability to see ourselves clearly.
Listen to this. Everyone was saying that the bull market will stop soon. The siren song of the bandwagon effect, our 9th bias. You hear it everywhere, right? On TV, on social media, everyone's screaming that the top is in. Your own analysis says, hey, things still look bullish, but you sell anyway, just to follow the herd. The moment you do that, you've thrown your own edge out the window and just given in to groupthink.
And all of this leads us to the final, ultimate meta trap. Bias number 10, the bias blind spot. This is the sneaky belief that, sure, other traders are emotional wrecks, falling for loss aversion and confirmation bias, but not you. Oh no, you're the logical one, you're immune. It is literally the bias that prevents you from seeing all your other biases, which, you can imagine, makes it the toughest one to beat.
So that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? If we are fundamentally blind to our own mental flaws, how on earth are we supposed to fight an enemy we can't even see?
Well, the answer isn't to try and think harder. The answer is to build a system, a set of habits and tools designed specifically to counteract these biases. Let's dive into the trader's toolkit and forge that mental edge.
So here's the game plan. It's not about finding one magic trick. It's about building concrete habits. First, you have to assume total responsibility. Take credit for following your rules, not for making money. And blame absolutely no one. Second, challenge yourself. Constantly. Go looking for evidence that you're wrong. Third, keep records. Specifically an ex-ante journal. That's just a fancy way of saying write down why you're taking a trade before you take it. It kills hindsight bias. Next, control only what you can control. Your actions, not the market. Ignore the crowd. Just step away from the bandwagon. And finally, get an outside view. Have the humility to ask someone else to look at your ideas. They might just see the blind spot you can't. These aren't just suggestions. These are the absolute cornerstones of a professional trading mindset.
So that leaves us with one last, really important question that I want you to take with you. The very next time you go to place a trade, just stop for a second and ask yourself this. Are you actually trading the market, or are you just trading your own biases?